The fluorescent lights of the grocery store buzzed faintly as John Kennedy, a silver-haired man with a face etched by years of wisdom, stood at the checkout counter, clutching a single crumpled note in his trembling hands. His sharp suit and the American flag pin on his lapel hinted at a life of service, but the urgency in his eyes told a different story, one of desperation and hope. Across from him, a young cashier named Mia, barely out of her teens, fumbled with the register, her fingers shaking as she slid a folded piece of paper toward him under the guise of handing over his receipt. The store hummed with the usual Saturday evening chatter, oblivious to the silent plea unfolding at aisle 5. When John unfolded the note and read the scrawled words, "Please help me," his heart sank, and the world around him seemed to blur into insignificance. What happened next would leave every shopper in stunned silence, a moment that would ripple through the community like a shockwave. Mia had been working at the store for 6 months, a job she took to support her younger brother Ethan after their parents' sudden car accident left them orphaned. At 19, she was the sole guardian of a 15-year-old boy who had stopped speaking since the tragedy, his once bright eyes now shadowed by grief. The weight of responsibility crushed her daily, bills piling up, Ethan's silence growing louder, and the constant fear of losing the only family she had left. That evening, as she scanned John's items, a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, and a small pack of cookies, she noticed the man's distinguished appearance and the way he carried himself with quiet dignity. Something about him felt familiar, though she couldn't place it. When Ethan, wearing a hoodie to hide his face, lingered nervously behind John, Mia's instincts kicked in. She had seen the signs before, Ethan's restless pacing, the way he avoided eye contact with customers. He was planning something, and her heart raced with the realization that he might be about to steal. John Kennedy, a retired senator who had served his state for decades, had come to the store not for groceries, but for a break from the isolation that had followed his wife's death 2 years prior. The political spotlight had faded, leaving him with a pension and a hollow house filled with memories. He missed the days of making a difference, of hearing the voices of his constituents. As he waited for his change, he caught Mia's trembling hands and the quick, secretive glance she threw toward the hooded boy behind him. When the note slipped into his palm, John's military-honed instincts flared. He read the plea, then looked, up to see Ethan edging toward the exit, a candy bar tucked into his sleeve. The situation crystallized in an instant. Mia was silently begging for help, and her brother was in trouble. Without a word, John turned to Ethan, his voice steady but kind. "Son, I think you dropped something." The boy froze, his face paling, as John gently held out the candy bar, retrieved from the sleeve with a calm authority that brooked no argument. The store's security guard, alerted by a nosy shopper, started toward them, but John raised a hand. "No need for that," he said firmly, his tone carrying the weight of a man used to commanding rooms. He turned to Mia, who looked on the verge of tears, and asked, "Is this your brother?" She nodded, her breath hitching as she fought to maintain composure. The store grew quiet, shoppers pausing to watch the unfolding drama. John didn't hesitate. He pulled out his wallet and handed Mia a crisp $100 bill. "For the candy, and maybe a meal for you both tonight," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers with understanding. But he wasn't done. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I've seen hardship, young lady. Let me help you carry more than just groceries." Mia's eyes widened, torn between pride and the desperate need to accept. Ethan, still silent, looked at the floor, shame mixing with relief. John's next move was bold. He invited them to his car, where he retrieved a box of leftovers from a local diner, a habit he'd picked up to avoid cooking alone. "Let's sit and talk," he suggested, guiding them to a bench outside the store. As they sat, the story poured out of Mia. The accident, the bills, Ethan's withdrawal. John listened, his own grief resurfacing as he remembered his wife's battle with illness and the loneliness that followed. He saw himself in Ethan's silence, in Mia's fierce determination. The challenge was clear. Mia needed support to keep her family intact, and Ethan needed a way back to the world. John proposed a solution, drawing on his network. He contacted a social worker he knew from his Senate days, arranging temporary financial aid and counseling for Ethan. He also offered to mentor Mia, using his experience to help her navigate guardianship and find stable work. The process wasn't easy. Mia struggled with accepting help, her pride clashing with her need. Ethan resisted counseling at first, lashing out in the only way he knew how, by retreating further. But John was patient, visiting them weekly, sharing stories of his own losses and triumphs. He brought Ethan a model car kit, sparking a flicker of interest that grew into late-night building sessions. Mia, encouraged by John's guidance, enrolled in a community college program, balancing work and study with his support. The store, where it all began, became a symbol of their turning point. Shoppers who had witnessed the incident spread the word, and soon a local fundraiser was organized to help the siblings. Months later, on a crisp autumn evening, John stood with Mia and Ethan outside the same grocery store. Ethan, now speaking again, thanked John with a shy smile, holding a completed model car. Mia, clutching her acceptance letter to college, hugged John tightly. The store's manager, moved by the story, offered Mia a promotion. As they walked away, John felt a warmth he hadn't known since his wife's passing, a sense of purpose reborn. The community, inspired by his act of kindness, began a chain of support for others in need, proving that one moment of compassion could ignite a movement. The message was clear. In the face of hardship, a single act of empathy can heal wounds and build bridges. John Kennedy, once a man of power, found his greatest legacy not in legislation, but in the lives he touched that night at the checkout counter. For Mia and Ethan, it was a new beginning, a testament to the strength found in community and the courage to ask for help. And for every shopper who watched, it was a reminder that kindness, even in the smallest gesture, can change everything.